Good morning, everybody on the Real Talk Radio app. We are so glad that you are joining us today. My name is Jason Gaszak, and you are listening to Unfiltered. If this is your first time listening to the show, or you just somehow stumbled across this show, Unfiltered is about me, a pastor. I'm a pastor out at Roots Church in St. Clair, Missouri. It's about me having a platform to talk about things in an unfiltered way. Politically, socially, economically, biblically, the whole nine yards, whatever the topic is. Really, it's just, something for me to be able to just speak my mind. And maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong. I like to look at things like I'm never wrong. I just might not be always right. And I also like to say things like, well, you have the right to be wrong as well. So that's what this show is about. Today, I have a sponsor of this show, or somebody that is kind of helping with the show, and that is the Roots Cafe. If you have never been to Roots Cafe out in St. Clair, Missouri, we are open Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 2 p.m., and it's a full menu. We have crepes. I don't know if you like crepes or not, but we have crepes. We have specialty coffees. We have smoothies. We have frappuccinos. We have all those types of drinks. We also have paninis for sandwiches. We have breakfast sandwiches. We have lunch sandwiches. We have breakfast crepes, lunch crepes, dessert crepes. We have pastries, soups, and salads. We have a pick two like nobody's business. You can have a soup or salad. You can have a sandwich, a half a sandwich or a salad, half a sandwich or a soup. You can mix it up however you want. But here's what I will tell you, that if you go into Roots Cafe and you tell them that you heard this commercial, this ad, you heard me talking about this on the Real Talk Radio network, I want you to go into the cafe and say, hey, I heard about Roots Cafe on the Real Talk Radio, on Unfiltered Radio Show, and they will give you 20% off your meal for the day. That's right, 20% off your meal just for mentioning that you heard this on the radio. So we're glad you're here. We have a fun show for you today. I have many things that I'm actually going to talk about. The first thing I want to do is I want to talk about football. This is football weekend. It is the playoff weekend, and one of my favorite teams, or my favorite team, is playing this weekend. And I found something, I do a This Day in History on my show at some point in the hour, and I'll do it, in this segment, because This Day in History goes right along with football, as a matter of fact. So let's just talk about that. This Day in History. On January 14th in 1973, the Miami Dolphins won the Super Bowl, which was Super Bowl VII, and they capped off the season with a perfect season. It's never been done ever in the history of football, except for the 1973 Miami Dolphins. They beat the Washington Redskins, now called the Commanders, back in 1973. Cool day in history is about football. It's about the Dolphins going undefeated. And guess what? The Dolphins are actually in the playoffs, believe it or not. So they actually play against Buffalo in the first round. I'm actually choosing Buffalo to beat Miami. Cincinnati is playing Baltimore. I'm choosing Cincinnati over Baltimore. You got Jacksonville over the Chargers. I'm picking Jacksonville. You have San Francisco and Seattle who play today. I'm picking, obviously, San Francisco. You have Minnesota and the Giants. I'm picking Minnesota. You have Tampa Bay and you have Dallas. Guess who I'm picking? Tampa Bay. Another cool statistic or little stat that I saw was that Tom Brady is 7-0 against Dallas. That's right. He is undefeated against Dallas. He has Dallas's number. As a matter of fact, I think everybody has Dallas's number when it comes to the playoffs. They choke every single time. I tell people I have two favorite teams in the NFL. One is the 49ers, and two is anybody who beats Dallas. Anybody who beats Dallas is my second favorite team because I just can't stand them. I don't know what it is. And I don't know where it came from that they're America's team. I disagree with that statement. But that's what people say, and that's where we are with it. But Dallas is going to lose. Now, as far as who am I going to pick for the NFC Championship, I think it's going to be the 49ers. Well, it can't be now. I'm looking at this. I don't see how this is possible. I thought the 49ers would be able to play against Philadelphia, but looking at this chart, that may not be the case now. They may have changed that up. So I'll have to check on that. But for the AFC Championship, I'm actually going to – I believe that Cincinnati and Kansas City is going to be in the AFC Championship. And I do believe that the 49ers are going to win the Super Bowl. I think Cincinnati is going to beat Kansas City because, again, Joe Burrow is undefeated against Patrick Mahomes. And, again, he has his number. I just think that he's going to beat him. So that's my take on football, ladies and gentlemen. That's just where I'm at. I tell you what, why don't you do me a favor and in the chat on the Real Talk Radio app, why don't you just tell me who your favorite team is? Who do you think is going to win the Super Bowl? Just if you don't even like football, just say I don't like football. It's overrated. They're overpaid players. Whatever you want to say, just let me know in the chat, or you can text me at 314-924-4215. Again, that's 314-924-4215. And most of you are thinking, this don't have anything to do with politics. It doesn't have anything to do with anything I even care about. Well, guess what? That's okay, because here in a minute, you're going to care about what I'm going to talk about. A couple subjects that I'm going to address today on this show. Now, you can hear me. My sinuses have been acting up. I got a little bit of a cough, so you'll have to endure that a little bit, I'm sure, on this radio show, but I'm doing the best that I can. This weather has been crazy, which I've been enjoying because it's been so nice out. However, as you guys know, the weather up and down messes with people and their sinuses and gets them sick and gives them colds and whatnot. And that's pretty much what I got is a cold. My sinuses are just jacking me up. But if you want to text me, you can do that at 314-924-4215. Again, 314-924-4215. Let me know what you think about what we're talking about today. But today, we have a couple topics that I'm going to address, and one of them is I'm going to talk about narcissism. Do you know someone who is narcissistic? Do you know someone who has to deal with someone who's, a narcissist? How about my next subject, pornography? I mean, maybe you struggle with pornography. Maybe you know someone who struggles with pornography. I'm going to give you some statistics, and I'm going to read to you about how porn is lying to you. Yeah, porn is lying to all of us about what it is. And today it is so easy to grasp at any given moment from your cell phone, and it's free anymore. And our young children are getting a hold of this at such an early age, which we'll talk about a little bit more in here in just a moment. But I like to call that cell phone, it's like porn in your pocket. So we're going to talk about narcissism. We're going to talk about pornography. And then, of course, we're just going to talk about whatever subject that might pop up in this discussion. Like, for instance, I saw this headline in the news that reads, federal court orders airlines to rehire flight attendant fired for her pro-life views. That's a huge win for this airline stewardess. She has these pro-life views, and she was fired because she did not want to pay her dues to the union who support abortion and who support Planned Parenthood. And she got fired for it because she made this comment, and now she's been awarded $5.1 million in damages. Yeah. This past summer, Carter was previously awarded $5.1 million in damages after a court found that the airline and the chapter of the Transportation Workers Union of America she belonged to unlawfully terminated her because she objected to using union dues to pay to transport union officials to the Women's March. This is a huge win that the federal court has now ordered Southwest Airlines to give this flight attendant her job back. My question is, would you want your job back? After you were fired for your views, what are these people going to view? How are they going to view you now? How are they going to treat you now? Are you going to have to walk on eggshells every time you turn around? I don't know if I'd want to go back. Well, I know I would want to go back, but for some people, they may not want to deal with that. But this is a huge win. So we're going to talk about, different articles like this today, and really just have open conversation. Now, it's hard for me to have open conversation when there's nobody else in the studio but me. So I'm talking to you, the listener, and you, the listener, can talk back to me through a text or through the radio app, or if you want to make a post on my Facebook page, you can do that. But I encourage you to follow me on social media. And make sure you listen to this show every week. The time has changed from 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. now. So Saturdays at 8 a.m., this will be the main show. And then, of course, there's a rebroadcast on Sundays at 8 a.m. as well. So we have plenty of time to talk about these things. And if you miss it on a Saturday, guess what? Good news is you can go back and you can listen on Sunday morning at 8 a.m. Same time for Saturday and Sunday. Super excited about the new time. Super excited about what 2023 is going to look like for this radio show and the topics that we're going to cover. So do me a favor. Don't go anywhere. Go grab a cup of coffee. Be safe if you're driving in your car. If you're at work, make sure you're not stealing your boss's time. But don't go nowhere, and we'll be right back in just a few minutes. All right, we are back from the break, and we are about ready to get into this next topic, pornography. What caught my eye about this particular subject is the fact that I like to read articles from different, news sites or whatnot. This one is a Christian based news site. It's called christianheadlines.com if you want to check it out. But it says here, what caught my attention is it says that 54% of teens have watched porn by age 13. That's insane to me. So in the study, roughly 54% of teenagers reported having seen internet pornography before turning 13. As a matter of fact, the average age of first exposure is 12 years old. 15% of youth respondents said that they saw porn-based content as young as 10 years old. 10 years old, these kids are seeing pornography. Wow. And we wonder why our world is so sexualized these days. 73% of these teens under the age of 18 have reported that they had watched pornography. 73%. That is a huge, huge amount of teenagers watching porn. And I'll tell you, man, porn lies to us. It lies of what it is. And I want to read to you. I mean, I could go through this whole survey, which I'm not going to do, but I do want to talk a little bit about pornography and how we all have been lied to when it comes to pornography. Because really, we are living in the perfect storm of sexual misinformation. And porn, it has revolutionized how humans learn what sex is. Because once porn has become, once it became accessible online and it was free, like you don't even have to pay for it. It was hard back in the day to see porn. Now you can just literally pull out your phone, type in some type of nasty thing, and go to images or go to videos, and boom, you can see whatever you want. This is why it's so vital, parents, that you got your kids on some type of protection of the sites that they go to. There are no restrictions anymore to protect children from pornography. And what's crazy is pornography will become the most frequent accessed educator on sex in the world. It's the worst case scenario for any sex education. And like I said, most kids have seen porn before the age 12. And so 45% of current porn videos are violent and are nearly all of them portray experiences that prioritizes the male's carnal need as opposed to a mutually fulfilling experience that empowers both parties, the man and the woman. So here it is, creating this unsustainable, desire for this exotic or erotic, unrealistic expectation and experience when it comes to sex. And so now when we watch this and we see this, it actually gives us an expectation of the way our partners should perform, the way they should act. Yeah, the things they say, the way they, you get what I'm saying. And so the sad thing about porn is it's conditioning people to view sex through the lens of a self-satisfaction as opposed to an intimate connection. And this education, this type of sex education, is absolutely destroying our ability as human beings to experience the deep connection that sex was meant to be. I mean, God created it for a man and a woman only. It wasn't created man on man or woman on woman. No, it wasn't created for that. That's jacked up. I don't care who you are. I don't care what you think. That is not biblical, and that is not the way God created it. He created it specifically for a man and a woman in the marriage bed, not in casual sex, not in checking a box, not in how many women can I sleep with, how many men can I sleep with before I get married. No, it was created so much differently than what this world views it. And then we wonder why there's so much trauma in our world when it comes to sexual abuse, because people are abusing the gift that God gave married couples. It's insane. And so there's several things. I mean, porn actually tells women, it tells us that women love to be used. That's what porn does. It sells the story that women love being used and abused and fulfilling whatever desire that the man has. And many men justify their porn addiction with the mindset that women in the video are there by choice. So, they want to be there. They want to do these things. But the reality is women, a lot of them women don't want to be there. They're actually trafficked in some way and raped on these scenes of pornography. It's real. And it's not fake like some of it is, obviously. But when you look at that and you think about it, wow, is that not destroying our country? Because we're looking for this quick self-gratification moment because we have no self-control over our sexual desires. And so we just self-satisfy, or we're, trying to take care of a need that we have, whether you're a woman or a man. It goes both ways. I mean, porn is for there's women that struggle with pornography as well. It used to be more men than women, but now it's pretty much equal. Still, the man a little bit more than the women, but it's still the same. And porn damages our ability to experience true intimacy in sex. It's insane. As a matter of fact, did you know that research shows us that it links porn to erectile dysfunction? Yeah. I mean, specifically when it's with a real life partner. There are also increasing signs that it impacts one's ability to be committed to another partner. So it rewires the brain for self-pleasure rather than intimacy and connection. So literally, your brain is not even looking at it like it's an actual connection in a relationship. It's just the act of. It's such a dangerous place to be. And so, again, porn actually tells us that the purpose of sex is purely physical and not emotional. Porn tells us that, tells the mind that sex is about performance. It's about how you perform. And that there shouldn't be anything emotional engaged in it. It's just sex. It's just an act of, which is absolutely false. It's absolutely false. Now, for men, I would say for the most part, yeah, that's probably true. Men, their sex drive's like a light switch. It's on and off. I mean, you could tell a guy that you want to have sex in the moment. It don't matter what's going on. He's ready. But a woman, on the other hand, is so different. They're like what I call a mixing board or like a crock pot. It takes time. You got to have every dial just right. There's got to be, the mood's got to be right. The conversation's got to be right. Your circumstances a lot of times has got to be right because the mind is so powerful. And for women, it's hard for them to shut other things out to engage. So there's definitely a lot of intimacy and a lot of emotional mindset that goes into having sex. It's not just the act of. So I have a few more things how porn destroys the relationship, but we got to take a break. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back in just a minute. Oh, now we are back and we are ready to continue to talk about pornography and sex. I'm sure many of you have just tuned in and you are like, what in the world? Yeah, we're talking about a pretty tough subject. We're talking about how porn is so dangerous and how porn lies to us. And so I got a couple more things and we're going to jump into the narcissism, but porn also conditions the mind to never be satisfied. I mean, literally, when you're looking at pornography, you're never satisfied with what you have. which is never good. Porn also portrays sex as a transaction, not a soul connection. It's not a transaction. There's so much more that goes into it. It's not emotionless porn of sale, no. You know, when you look at it as that it is emotionless porn of sale, you're looking at it like that one person gets what they want, and in return, they're willing to give it to another. I mean, you're simply paying a website for a sexual pleasure. I mean, I understand it's a real addiction, and we have to figure out how to get this. If you have a struggle with it, you need to talk to someone about it because it's very damaging to the relationships, especially if you're a young person. It's going to affect your marriage. And I know as a pastor that when I'm having conversations with couples who are struggling, some of the things that they struggle with is the fact that their husband is in porn or their wife is into what we call soft porn, reading these novels that are fictitious stories that aren't even true about romance. And how all of a sudden now we think our man should be that, or the way our man should act and the things that our man should do. And it's just absolutely not realistic at all. So I just want to encourage you that if you are struggling with pornography, you need to do something to get some help because it is lying to you. It's lying to you. You can text me if you need to, if you need some resources on getting help. My number is 314-924-4215, or you can again, I mean, if you really want to put it in the chat, you can, but I would encourage you to text me if you need some resources, or if you just want some resources for a friend, you know, asking for a friend, you can put it in the chat. But either way, it's a serious business, and we need to really be thinking about what it does to us because teenagers are being ruined by it, and the devil knows what he's doing, and he's destroying people's relationships through pornography. All right. Well, that's just one topic, you know, to be discussing. But here's another one that I think can be a real challenge, and that is narcissism. Do you know someone with narcissism? Are you married to them? Do you have a friend that way? Let me just briefly talk about narcissism. Narcissism is a term used in psychology to describe a preoccupation with self. It's all about yourself. It is a Greek term taken from the name of the mythological Narcissus, who fell in love with his own image and was doomed to die because he would not turn away from it. A narcissist is a person who displays high level of selfishness, vanity, and pride. That's what a narcissist is. It's all centered around themselves. In psychology, narcissism is seen as a broad spectrum of conditions ranging from normal to pathological. And even though biblically we are born, you know, into sin, and we are very selfish beings, there is a challenge when it comes to narcissism. As a matter of fact, some people reach a certain level of narcissism because there are different levels of it. Some are just more extreme than others. They did a study of 37,000 college students, and these researchers found that over a 30-year period, narcissistic personality traits rose at the same speed as obesity rates. That is crazy to me. I mean, that is the vanity that we're living in right now, that people have become so prideful that everything is about them. And so for some, I mean, depending on how extreme it is, they become diagnosed with what they call NPD, which is narcissistic personality disorder. And when you get to that place, you got to have extensive treatment to fix that. And you talk to some psychologists, and they'll tell you that the only way to rid narcissism is a miracle from God, because some people are so wrapped up in themselves. And maybe you're not in a relationship with anyone who suffers from this disease. Maybe you've been the brunt of someone else's narcissistic behavior. You know, when someone treats you as though you are a means to their self-important ends. That's really what it boils down to. I mean, these relationships, if you're in a relationship with a narcissist, it can be frustrating. It can be disorienting. Sometimes it can even be downright harmful to your mental health. They gaslight you. They make you think you're crazy. And as Christians, how do we respond to this? How do we still love somebody? How do we still help somebody through this? Because it can be a huge, huge challenge. I mean, the hallmark of narcissism is a preoccupation with itself. I mean, narcissistic people are often very self-confident and even quite charming. Matter of fact, they even gain influence and advancement in their life because of how they are. They're just that way. But the closer you get to them is when you find out that they have lack of empathy and they're prone to lash out at others when they feel their personal fulfillment is being encroached upon. They start making you feel like the bad guy. They start blaming everything like you're the problem. And so narcissists, what they do is they attack or accuse those who contradict them. They'll even go as far as humiliating you in public. So you really got to be zero. I mean, it is a serious business, but I have found that sometimes in your research, you have to be very careful of labeling people with narcissism because, maybe they're not. Maybe they're just going through a sense of pride, which is a form of it, but not everybody is narcissistic. But there are a lot of people out there, more now than ever, according to these statistics. And these people, they become jealous of other people's successes or relationships. And what they do is they tend to isolate those that are close to them while attacking their self-esteem through constant insults and put down. That's what they do. They're trying to control you. They're trying to manipulate you and make you feel like you're a loony bin. So in the effort to control others, narcissistic people, they eventually meticulously monitor the movements and whereabouts of those that are close to them. I mean, that's like this game, and they can't stand the thought of them being wrong. And when they're challenged about their behavior or when they're challenged about something else, they become oversensitive, and then they start attacking. And like I said, they gaslight. They begin to deny what they said or what they did to make you feel crazy. Pretty nuts. Or maybe even sometimes they'll just, I was just kidding about that. Oh, it was just a joke. And they're trying to get you to believe that it was just misinterpreted. But that's not the truth. Narcissistic people are incredibly adept at turning the blame on anybody and everybody but themselves, often projecting their own failures and shortcomings on others and accusing them of the reason why their lives are the way they are. And they're the guilty ones, not us, not them. That's narcissism. And it's a serious, serious personality disorder, no doubt. I don't know if people believe they even have it. I think it's so bad that they don't even realize that they are being narcissistic. And there are ways to deal with this. And that's what I want to help you with. I've only got about 4 minutes left in this segment, but I'm going to continue it on to the last segment because I want to help you, because this is something that is becoming so much more prevalent in our relationships these days, and we need to stay away from people like this. We need to really be aware of narcissistic people who can totally destroy you mentally if you're not careful. As a matter of fact, most people are afraid to confront a narcissist because of how they're going to be treated. They're afraid of the repercussion, of the retaliation. Man, oh man, such a dangerous place to be. So, number one, you got to remember that you are not a doormat. You are not a doormat. You are not to be walked on. Christians are called to grow in the fruit of the Spirit. Paul talks about this in Galatians 5, that we are to be love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. But Christians must also recognize that love is not opposed to preserving oneself against the abuses of another. Patience is not opposed to setting limits. We have to set boundaries. We have to set limits. Gentleness does not mean that you can't rebuke someone. We can't be pansies when it comes to this stuff. I mean, yes, it is about love. It's about accepting people where they are, but you are not to be walked on. You are not to be a doormat for people to just run all over you and to treat you like crap. You have to protect yourself from these types of behaviors and these types of relationships. And that does not make you a bad person. It does not mean that you are a mean person or you are not a Christian because you're protecting yourself from these people. I mean, self-control keeps us from lashing out in unhealthy or ungodly ways. That's what self-control does. It does not require us to continue putting ourselves in situations where we're at risk of being emotionally, spiritually, or even physically harmed. The fine line that Christians must walk is that we should always be striving to be kind while not enabling a mistreatment or abuse from someone else. Refusing to hold a grudge while not allowing a narcissistic person continually tear us down. So it's called having discernment, and discernment requires prayer. And we must seek God's wisdom as we learn to deal with narcissistic people in our lives. You want discernment. You don't want to accuse somebody of being a narcissist if they're not, if they're just prideful, if they're just having a bad moment. But at the same time, you also don't want to be played into a relationship that you have no idea what is going on, and all of a sudden, boom, you're hooked, and you can't get out of that relationship because of fear of the way they're going to treat you, the way they're going to damage you, the way they're going to talk about you. This is why your character matters. This is why it is important to have integrity and character for when you get around somebody like this, that you can confidently step away from it and not really care what they say about you, because then those people know who their personality is. They know their character as well. It's not easy dealing with narcissists. As a matter of fact, when you talk to psychologists and counselors, they'll tell you that in a marriage, it is the most difficult person to deal with in the world. Like they almost give you 0% chance of overcoming the issue. It's like the only thing that's going to help is a miracle from God that this person who is narcissistic will change. That's how severe it is. So I have a few more. Let me just go to the next one, and I may have to cut off and go to the break. But the second thing is we got to set boundaries and stick to them. What is important to remember when we're dealing with a narcissistic person is that you can't control how they act or what they feel toward you. But what you can do is control what you do. You can control the boundaries that you put in place and then commit to sticking to them. These boundaries may include you removing yourself from the situation when a narcissistic person begins to attack you, or refusing to respond favorably when they launch into this place of, anger, of motives of speaking about other people. Yeah, we got to be gracious in the way that we go about setting and communicating these boundaries. We also got to be strategic. Listen, when we come back, I'll finish how we deal with narcissistic people. Don't go anywhere. We'll see you in just a minute. All right, we're back from the break. That was quick. I hope you're ready to finish this thing out. And you're probably thinking, man, I hope I don't ever have to deal with a narcissistic person, and I hope you don't either. But right before the break, I was talking about how we got to set boundaries and how we have to, be wise in how we go about setting up these boundaries and communicating these boundaries with a narcissistic person. Because when there's open confrontation, it's rarely the most helpful way to address your concerns with their behavior. I mean, you got to be very careful because they're not going to see it, and they become oversensitized and critiqued, and it could really lead them to this relentless attack on you, or they could become fixated on proving that you are the problem. You are the problem. So obviously this could result in a relational setback rather than forward progress. So I want you to strive to be prudent, empathetic, wise, smart, even as you strive to be firm. You don't have to be ugly. You don't have to be ignorant, but you do need to be firm. So when you're setting these boundaries, you may feel as though you're being rigid or you're being selfish or mean. But in fact, the narcissistic person who does not like your boundaries may try to convince you as doing that. But it's important to remember that these boundaries are a necessary part of preserving your emotional, spiritual, and even your physical well-being. What's most important is your mental and physical well-being is not being compromised by a narcissistic person. Here's the third thing, and that is you got to find support from a trusted friend. So friends are important. I was talking to my wife the other day, and as pastors, it's really a challenge for us to have close friends because, a lot of people can't handle maybe what we go through. They can't handle maybe our flaws, our imperfections. They put us on these pedestals. They think that, we got all our stuff together and we're holier than thou. And it's not like it's a bad intention. I don't think people intentionally do that. It's just a perspective when you think of a priest or a bishop or a pastor or somebody in, some type of religion authority. They view them as they are to be the ultimate example. And guess what? We should be an example. There's no doubt. But we're human. We have real human emotions. We're born into sin just like everybody else. We have a sinful nature that we have to fight. And guess what? I know this is going to be, mind-blowing to you. But the truth of the matter is we mess up. We make mistakes. We sin. Pastors sin. Absolutely. We make mistakes. And so as much as we want to be vulnerable, as much as we want to be honest with people, our friends, and share things that we're going through, the problem is those people will use those things against us. Those people will then begin to view us a certain way. And then when we're up on stage speaking, all they can think about is how that person's not perfect and how they just messed up last week and how could I follow them because they made a mistake. So it's a challenge to find support sometimes as a pastor. Heck, it's a challenge to find support if you're just a regular Joe. I was talking to somebody the other day besides my wife, and they were like, I don't have anybody like that. I don't have anybody that I can just talk to. It is important for you to find a friend, someone that you can trust, to be able to share with them what you're dealing with. And guard yourself against gossiping or complaining unnecessarily. I mean, you might have to recount your conversation or conflict with a narcissistic person to see if your confidant recognizes the same troubling pattern of your behavior. Gossiping is not the key, but talking about what you're dealing with a trusted friend that can help you overcome the situation. You're not there to fix them. You're asking to fix yourself. And that's really what we need to be focused on. And the person, they can be a close friend, or maybe they just need to be a life coach. I have a life coach. I need a life coach. That's the person that I kind of vent to. That's the person that I really share everything with. And I don't do it all the time. I'm probably at once a quarter right now, once every 3 months, maybe once every 4 months that I talk to them about what's going on in my life. And I ask them to coach me on what I'm dealing with. And they are level-headed with me. They give me, the steps to overcome these challenges. And so I would encourage you to get a life coach. Yeah, a life coach, you know what that is? That's a therapist. It's just a positive way of looking at it. Too many people view having a therapist as a negative thing, like we're messed up and we have issues. Well, let me help you understand something. You are messed up and you do have issues. We all do. Some just more than others. But why wait until you blow the lid off your top? Why not have a coach that can help coach you through your life troubles? Yeah, well, that's wisdom, isn't it? So you never want to take advice, though, that will require you to insert yourself into a unhealthy situation. If somebody's telling you that you need to insert yourself into your unhealthy situation to solve your problems, I would be trying to look for another friend, because that isn't going to help you. Here's the fourth thing, and that is you got to recognize when you need to exit the relationship. This is the last one. You got to recognize that some relationships just aren't worth it. And I know they're probably fun to be around. But if they're destroying your mental health, if they're destroying your confidence because of their narcissism, then it's best to get out of the relationship and move on. Because the unfortunate reality when you're dealing with a narcissistic person is that even if you are incredibly gracious and clear with your boundaries, and you strive to be forgiving and overlook offenses, and you return the kindness for every attack, there may come a point at which the relationship is unrepairable. And you must begin to disentangle yourself from that life. This is also true when you're in an abusive behavior. But especially if they're a narcissistic person, is they're some type of an authority figure, such as a parent or a boss, making the decision to step back from the relationship or remove yourself from it entirely is something you should not take lightly. You need to make sure you're careful in those relationships because it can totally disrupt your life. And not only your life, but relationships in your life, other relationships that you find value in that can destroy them. And so try to find a church community that can help you in this regard. This is why being a part of a church is important, because there's people in the church that's gone through several things like what I've been talking about, and they can help you. Maybe you've been addicted to porn. Somebody can help you. Maybe you have a narcissistic person that you're dealing with. The church can help you. There's so many things. And so you got to remember that we serve God who heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds. We got to look to the Savior who offers rest for our souls, that we are to not carry the burden all by ourselves, that we are to trust God. And God is the only one that can heal us. God is the only one that can mend the broken hearts of our souls and the wounds that come our direction. A person cannot do that. The path to healing and wholeness isn't always a straight line. But through your peaks and valleys, we have a God who is close to us and who cares for us. And I just believe that he's there for you the whole entire time. God is there for you every single time. And it is not easy going through these things. It's not easy dealing with these things. So I don't know where you are. I don't know what you got going on in your life, but those are a couple topics that I just felt were necessary to talk about because we're seeing more and more of it in this day and age. We are literally living in a world that is completely jacked up, and we all need a Savior to save us from the evil that lurks within and the evil that manifests through people who are hateful, mean, and honestly just don't have any common sense. And I hope here in the next couple weeks, I've got a couple topics that I'm going to be talking about. I'm just still gathering data. I'm still gathering information because, I want to make sure that I got my stuff in the row. I got to get my stuff together before we talk about it because it is some deep stuff that we're going to be talking about. Yes, deep stuff. Like, as an example of something I want to discuss, I only got like 40 seconds left, but this might tickle your ears a little bit. A lot of churches use this personality guide called the Enneagram. But something that's come in front of me by many, many other religious leaders is, like for instance, it says top 10 reasons Christians should run away from the Enneagram. Where did it come from? How did it get started? Is it of the devil? Is it evil? Is it, witchery? Something like that. Well, that's a topic that I'm going to talk about, and I'm probably going to address that topic next week about Enneagram. But until then, we have got to go. It is the end of the show. We have already blown through our time, and I'm grateful that you stuck with me. Don't forget, next week I'll be back on Saturday at 8 a.m., Sunday at 8 a.m. as a rebroadcast. We'll see you guys. Go 49ers. Have a great weekend.